Hello, and welcome to Tales for Life. In each episode of this podcast, we'll explore a folk or fairy tale from a different culture or region and discover the life lessons, values, and morals they offer that we can use today. Join me on the journey through the magical and meaningful world of folk and fairy tales. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Tales for Life, the podcast that journeys through life one tale at a time. At some point or other, all of us have heard someone say, maybe even ourselves, that something wasn't fair. Guess what? We were right. So welcome to today's episode that I've appropriately titled, Life Isn't Fair, but Push Through Anyway. Let's not mince words. Life isn't fair. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find even one instance where you can make that claim. Some people are born into wealth, and others into poverty. Some people have great eyesight, while others need glasses or contact lenses. The list goes on and can include all sorts of things. And that's just life. As someone once told me, life isn't fair, never has been, never will be. Get used to it. But what about when that unfairness isn't just because of a bad roll of the dice, so to speak? What do we do when we get treated unfairly? I'm glad you asked. Ready for the answer? Just push through anyway. No, really. Because your outcome isn't determined by how many tears you cry, how loud you yell, or how hurt your feelings are. It's all dependent on you and your determination to not let what's on the outside destroy what's on the inside. While there are many stories on this theme, one of my favorites is from Russia and is titled Vasilisa the Beautiful. Long ago, in a far corner of Russia, there lived a merchant, his wife, and their lovely daughter, Vasilisa. One day, the mother fell ill, and just before dying, she gave Vasilisa a small wooden doll, saying, "Keep it hidden. Feed it a bit of bread and a drop of milk when you're troubled, and it will help you. Above all, stay kind and brave." Years passed. Vasilisa grew graceful and kind. Her father remarried, a cold woman with 2 vain daughters. When the merchant left on business, the stepmother's cruelty bloomed. Vasilisa became a servant in her own home. One day, the fire in their hearth burned low. Claiming it was Vasilisa's fault, they sent her deep into the black forest to fetch fire from the fearsome witch, Baba Yaga, whose hut stood on chicken legs and spun to face intruders. Terrified but determined, Vasilisa walked for days, guided by her doll. When she arrived at the hut, it turned to face her, and Baba Yaga appeared, all iron teeth and sharp nose. "Why are you here, child?" Vasilisa asked for fire. Baba Yaga agreed, but only if the girl completed 3 tasks by dawn of each day. The first was to sort a mountain of millet from poppy seeds, with no mistakes. The second was to clean the house and yard, and the third was to separate moldy corn from good corn. Each time, the doll whispered comfort and worked magic through the night so that each morning the impossible task had been completed. When Baba Yaga saw everything done, she narrowed her eyes. "Who helped you?" Vasilisa replied politely, "I'm blessed by my mother's love." Baba Yaga snarled, "I will have no such blessedness in my hut." And so saying, she gave Vasilisa a glowing skull lantern and sent her away. When Vasilisa returned home, the skull's fire blazed, burning the wicked stepmother and stepsisters to ash, but leaving Vasilisa untouched. Now alone, Vasilisa buried the lantern and left the house behind. She sought refuge with an old woman in the city, her old nurse. There she lived quietly and humbly. To pass the time, with the help of her doll, Vasilisa spun the finest flax and wove linen so delicate it shimmered like moonlight. The old woman took the cloth to the palace, where it astonished the Tsar. "Only a maiden of rare talent could craft such beauty," he said. He ordered shirts to be made from it, but none of the court seamstresses dared cut the fabric. So the old woman returned with the task, and Vasilisa, with the help once more of the doll, sewed the garments. Next morning, the old nurse took the shirts to the Tsar, who was simply delighted with them and would not rest until he saw this wonderful girl who did everything that no one else could do. Meanwhile, Vasilisa, after dressing herself in a beautiful satin dress looking like a rose freshly plucked from the garden, sat by the open window as though waiting for something. Suddenly she heard the sound of wheels. She looked up and saw one of the Tsar's carriages drive up to the door. Vasilisa flew to answer the bell. "Does the young lady who made the Tsar's shirts live here?" asked a footman with powdered hair. Vasilisa told him that she was the one. So off she rode to the palace. But no sooner had she made her appearance at court when all eyes were turned to her, full of surprise at her wonderful beauty. As for the Tsar himself, he fell straight away in love with her, and in a very short time they were married. Vasilisa's father soon returned and was overjoyed at the news. He lived the rest of his days with his beloved daughter and the Tsar, her husband. The old woman too was properly taken care of, and lived in a nice little house close to the palace, where she could see Vasilisa as often as she pleased. The beautiful young queen became more lovely every day, and kept the doll carefully locked up to the end of her days. This really is a lovely story with a happy ending. But let's not lose the 3 valuable lessons embedded here behind a wooden doll. Let's start with the one at the beginning when Vasilisa's mother dies. Her mother gives her, in essence, 3 commands. The first is to keep the doll hidden. The second is to care and feed the doll when she needs help. And the third is to stay kind and brave. The one literal part of this advice for us is to stay kind and brave. And we see that in the story, and especially in the full-length version, where Vasilisa endures quite a bit of unfairness, and indeed has to go to Baba Yaga, a witch. But the first and second commands are equally important, when you consider that they speak to our character. We don't need to flash our character to others, and we need to make sure we take care of it, because our character is what will see us through the difficult times. The second lesson here is that when you keep pushing through, you will, sooner than you think, find yourself on the other side. And that's what happened to Vasilisa after her time with Baba Yaga. Rather than pitying herself for the impossible task, or even just being sent to a witch who eats people, Vasilisa pushed through with the help of her character. The result? When she came back to her stepmother and stepsisters, they disappeared from her life. The method here is not important because we're not all walking around with flaming skulls, but the message certainly is. Your character, your kindness, and your bravery will overcome the obstacles you face in life. And that will lead you to the final lesson. Just because you're no longer being treated unfairly, don't give up your character. Vasilisa still keeps her doll, her character, and still uses it, which garners the attention of the Tsar and leads to her happily ever after. And that's us as well. The character traits, kind, brave, caring, aren't just for times of trouble. That quiet inner strength, remember the part about keeping it hidden? Shows itself and will, indeed, take us to the next level. When life feels unfair, and it often will, remember Vasilisa. Not because she found a fairy tale ending, but because she moved forward with character when things were anything but fair. The real magic wasn't in the skull or the wooden doll. It was in how she met hardship with quiet strength and chose not to let the darkness define her. And if that's not a lesson worth carrying, I don't know what is. That same strength of character lives in all of us, and it's what carries us forward long after the story's turned its final page. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Tales for Life.